Paul, I feel like you and Laura and I were having this conversation 3 months ago, and we sort of discounted it, to his point, where he says people who are putting this out of their minds just don't want to deal with it. I feel like we decided it wasn't really an option. Has that changed? Does this feel like it is an option to you right now?
Greeny, it is still a last resort, but that last resort may be the next resort pretty soon because of the current status of the country. College football administrators have spent all spring looking at contingencies, how to open up, how to get to Labor Day weekend, and now they are extremely nervous about what they're seeing, what we're all seeing around the country. So quietly, they are whispering the spring football concept. They don't want to do it. There are so many problems. Primarily, the best players will not play or will likely not play. And besides, in some parts of the country, it is bitter cold. But in a couple of weeks, this could become a very big conversation.
Give us a sense of what that might look like, Paul. From what you're hearing, and no one talks to more people around the sport than you do, what would a spring, and I'm putting that in air quotes, what would that the NFL's not going to move their draft, right? That remains at the end of April.
Yeah.
So what exactly are we looking at as far as when a spring season would actually be played?
Well, probably a shortened season because there's no way you could get 12 games, and you'd have to start in January, and I don't think that's doable in very many parts of the country, even in parts of the South. So you would probably play a 10-game season, maybe all conference season. So those are some of the things that you're looking at. You just have to go ahead and say Trevor Lawrence, Justin Field, and company will not be around because the NFL overtures have been made, and the NFL is saying we're not changing the draft. We don't really care. Thank you very much. So it would be strange. Although here's the positive side. If there is a vaccine, I don't mean to sound like Anthony Fauci, and there are more ways of treating this virus, then you could possibly get people in stands to watch the games, which this fall I think is very unlikely.
Yeah, look. I've been saying this for months now. There are so many more questions than there are answers during a pandemic. I totally get what you're saying. Ninkovich, let me come to you. You were a guy who got drafted in the 5th round. You weren't Trevor Lawrence or in that kind of situation. If they said to you in your senior year of college, we're going to play this season in the spring, the games are going to start in February, and we're going to play until the first week of April, would you have played?
Of course. When you're 21 years old and you don't know you're going to be drafted in the 5th round, I didn't know I was going to be drafted in the 5th round. I could have been a free agent. So when you're 20, 21 years old, you just want to know, hey, where do I show up and can I play? And a lot of these guys, unless you're a potential first-round pick and you have an agent in your ear saying, look, you could possibly lose a lot of money if you go and play in this spring football. Look, there's going to be guys that are going to be there. You have tons of football players in college that just want to play football. They don't care about what time they start. They just want to play, have the opportunity to be drafted. I would have been there playing in the spring, guaranteed.
Domonique, let's talk about guys who are, well, why are you shaking your head?
Because it just crossed my mind that even the guys who aren't first-round top overall picks, it may not be in their best interest to play either. Because if they sit out this season, they'll miss this draft. They'll be in the next year's draft. There's twice as many players coming out that year that you'll have to then compete with. So I'm not sure that it makes sense for anybody who has any realistic NFL potential to play at this point. You don't want to be in a double-sized draft class. Then you absolutely won't get drafted, and you'll be competing against so many more people to make a roster. It might make sense for the low-round guys or free agent guys to skip a spring season also and just go straight into the draft and hopefully make the team that way.
Well, let's be clear on what we're talking about here, though, Nick. I want to make sure I'm understanding your thought. If there is no season, let's say they don't play a college football season at all, in your mind, would there still be a draft?
Yeah, I still think there will be a football draft.
Right.
And if there is a season, then the guys who are playing in that college football season will not be eligible for the draft. So they won't be eligible for next year's draft, which means that the draft class will be bigger. So it makes it even harder to make a roster. I'm not sure that it makes sense for anybody who wants to play in NFL. If the draft comes up, you go into the draft. If any scout has come around and sniffed around your program in any respect, then you go into the draft and try to figure it out from there.
Paul, quickly, the Ivy League is going to vote this week on potentially moving their season to the spring. Now, across the country, people may not pay a lot of attention, but that could be very important. Why is that an impactful decision?
It's important for this reason, Greeny. The presidents of universities, they pay attention to what Ivy League presidents are going to do. Some of them want to be Ivy League presidents one day. And I think they'll take a very close look. And most people believe the Ivy League is not going to play this fall. So it will send a message. Here's the Ivy League. Remember one thing: the Ivy League was the first basketball, first league to decide we're not playing the conference basketball event a couple of months ago. When they decided on that Tuesday, we all laughed. By Thursday, everything was gone, including the NCAA tournament.
Right, exactly right. It's important to remember that a lot of times all it takes is one decision to get made and it becomes a snowball that starts rolling down the hill. The possibility of spring football is out there. It is real. We'll see if that becomes the reality. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.